The landing craft slams into a wave, and salt water crashes over the bow, soaking you to the bone. Your stomach lurches, not from the rough seas of the Mediterranean, but from what you know is waiting on that beach ahead. Around you, men clutch their rifles with white-knuckled grips, their faces pale and drawn in the pre-dawn darkness. Some are praying. Others stare straight ahead with hollow eyes. But you're not holding a rifle. You're not even allowed to carry one. Strapped across your chest is a medical kit stuffed with bandages, sulfa powder, and morphine syrets. On your helmet, front and back, is a red cross painted in white, the symbol that's supposed to protect you under the Geneva Convention. You're a medic with the 36th Infantry Division, and in a few minutes, you'll be among the first American troops to face the enemy on the beaches of Salerno. The night before, General Eisenhower's voice crackled over the ship's radio with news that seemed almost too good to be true. Italy had surrendered. The men around you erupted in celebration, cheering, slapping backs, laughing with relief. "We're going to be in Rome this weekend," someone shouted. You allowed yourself to believe it. Why wouldn't you? The Italians had given up. The enemy had capitulated before you even hit the beach. This was going to be a walk in the park, a liberation rather than an invasion. But there's something they didn't tell you. Something about a German panzer division dug in on that beach, waiting, with more on the way. Something about how there would be no preliminary naval bombardment, no air support, no softening of enemy positions. The brass wants surprise. They're gambling your life on it. You're going in cold, expecting to be greeted as liberators. The ramp drops with a metallic crash. The sergeant screams, "Go, go, go!" You plunge into waist-deep water, the cold Mediterranean shocking your system, stealing your breath. The weight of your medical supplies drags at you as you push toward the shore, each step a struggle against the churning surf. Around you, men are wading forward, rifles held high to keep them dry. And then, your world erupts in fire and noise. The distinctive crack of 88mm shells tears through the air. These aren't distant artillery rounds fired from miles away. The Germans have lowered their anti-aircraft guns to fire point blank at the beach, using them like massive machine guns. Sand and water erupt in geysers all around you. The concussion waves slam against your chest. Men fall, some silently, some screaming. The beach that was supposed to welcome you has become a killing ground. Your commanding officer, Captain Jack Akins, a surgeon from Oklahoma City who should be in an operating room, not on an invasion beach, doesn't make it 2 minutes onto the sand before a shell finds him. His leg is gone, severed at the knee, blood pumping into the wet sand. Vernon Anderson, a medic you trained with back in the States, sprints off the ramp and is cut down immediately. Dead before his body hits the water. And then you see him, a buddy of yours, lying in the sand just ahead, his scalp peeled back from his skull. The wound is so catastrophic, so beyond anything you trained for, that you don't even know where to begin. Blood is everywhere. He's still alive, barely, his eyes rolling, his mouth trying to form words. What's your next move? Do you run for cover and save yourself? Do you try to drag him back to the water, to one of the boats heading back out to sea? Or do you drop right there, in the middle of that hellscape, and try to save his life? You drop to your knees beside him. Shells are exploding all around you, close enough that the concussions rattle your teeth. You rip open your medical kit and do the only thing you can do. You dump every packet of sulfa powder you have into that horrific wound, trying to prevent infection, trying to do something, anything. You grab a bandage and you literally tie his head back together, wrapping it tight, holding it closed with cotton and gauze in desperate hope. Somehow, you drag him back toward the water. Somehow you get him onto one of those barges heading back to the ships. You've done everything you possibly could. He lives for 3 days. On the day he dies, his son is born back home in America. A life ending and a life beginning, separated by an ocean and connected by grief. How do you process something like that? How do you keep functioning when your first real patient dies despite everything you did? There's no time to grieve, no time to think. There's only the next wounded man, and the next, and the next. The screaming never stops. Welcome to POV World War II. I'm your host, Fernando Prieto, and today we're taking you on an extraordinary journey through World War II as experienced by Arthur Wenzel, a young man from Newark, New Jersey, who would survive the bloodiest invasion of the Italian campaign, the brutal mountain fighting that followed, the liberation of Rome, a second D-Day in southern France, and the final push into the heart of Nazi Germany. What does it mean to be a combat medic? To run toward the bullets instead of away from them? Armed with nothing but bandages and morphine? What does it take to save lives when you can't even defend your own? And how does a man carry those experiences for the rest of his life? This is Arthur's story. For the next hour, it's yours too. Before the blood and the chaos, before the beaches and the mountains, there was a young man growing up in New Jersey with no idea what fate had in store for him. You're Arthur Wenzel, born in Newark in 1921, raised in the working-class town of Irvington. Your childhood is comfortable, if not wealthy. Your father, Arthur Sr., works for the American Insurance Company, a white-collar job he'll hold for nearly 50 years. Your mother keeps the house. You've got a sister. The family weathers the Great Depression better than most because your father's employment stays steady. You attend Chancellor Avenue Grammar School, where you play baseball, then Irvington High, where you play football. You're athletic, competitive, good with your hands. You join the High Y Club, associated with the YMCA, and serve as an officer. It's the kind of small-town American life that seems far removed from the wars raging in Europe and Asia. But war has touched your family before. Your father is a veteran of the Great War, 78th Infantry Division. He fought in some of the bloodiest battles on the Western Front, St. Mihiel, the Argonne Forest. He was gassed with mustard gas, that horrific chemical weapon that burns the lungs and blisters the skin. Somehow he survived without lasting damage. Your family is of German descent, stretching back generations in America. This creates an awkward tension as war clouds gather. Some of your neighbors you know are sympathetic to the Nazi regime. Bundists, they're called. German Americans who attend rallies, who visited that camp up in Andover where swastikas fly alongside American flags. But not your family. Whatever your heritage, your loyalty is clear. When America eventually goes to war against Germany, there will be no conflict in your heart. After high school, you try college. A year and a half at Drexel Institute in Philadelphia, studying business administration. It's a cooperative program where you alternate between classroom work and industry experience. You're not focused, not driven. I didn't let my studies interfere with my education, you'll joke later. The truth is simpler. You're 20 years old, and you don't know what you want from life. You're drifting. You drop out of Drexel and take a job at Western Electric, working as a packer in the factory. It's honest work, but it's not a career, not a calling. You spend your weekends at places like Paul's Bar on Florence Avenue, playing shuffleboard with your buddies, maybe nursing a beer, not thinking too hard about the future. And then comes December 7th, 1941. You're in Paul's Bar that Sunday afternoon when the radio program is interrupted. Pearl Harbor has been attacked by Japanese forces. You look around at the faces of your friends, and every one of them reflects the same confusion. Where the hell is Pearl Harbor? Someone asks. Nobody knows. It takes an older guy walking in later to explain it's a naval base in Hawaii, thousands of miles away, and then he delivers the news that changes everything. Looks like we're going to war tomorrow. Sure enough, the next day, President Roosevelt asks Congress for a declaration of war. Your world, the comfortable world of predictable factory work, weekend bar games, and the girl you've been seeing named Joyce, is about to vanish. What are you feeling in this moment? Fear? Excitement? A strange sense of purpose finally clicking into place? Whatever it is, you know that your life will never be the same. The months after Pearl Harbor pass in a blur of uncertainty. You're 20 years old, not yet required to register for the draft, but you watch as friends and neighbors enlist, as the newspapers fill with stories of battles in the Pacific, as the country transforms itself into an arsenal of democracy. By May 1942, you've made your decision. You walk into the Sussex Armory in Newark and raise your right hand. You're not waiting to be drafted. You're enlisting. I just thought it was a good thing to get in the service and get the thing going and get it over with. You'll explain later. The more people who enlisted, the sooner we'd get it over with. And it had to be gotten over with. There's another factor you don't mention as often. Joyce. You've been seeing her since you were teenagers. You met her at the Presbyterian Church in South Orange Center, or maybe at the ice cream parlor across the street. By now you're engaged, but you have no commitments, no clear path forward. The Army offers something you've been lacking: direction. From the Armory, they pack you onto a train to Trenton, then a bus to Fort Dix. That first night, they show you how to make a bed, Army style, with hospital corners tight enough to bounce a quarter. No uniforms yet. Those won't come for a few days. You're just a civilian in limbo, waiting to be transformed into a soldier. Within 5 days, you're on another train, headed south to Camp Blanding, Florida, for 17 weeks of basic training. What do you expect from the Army? What kind of soldier do you think you'll become? These questions swirl around your mind as the train carries you toward your fate. Camp Blanding sits in the scrub pine country of north central Florida, surrounded by swamps and sand and oppressive humidity. It's May, and the heat is already brutal, the kind of wet, heavy heat that soaks your uniform within minutes of putting it on. But you're athletic, and the physical demands of basic training don't faze you. Long marches through the Florida sand, obstacle courses that leave other men gasping, endless calisthenics in the blazing sun. You take to all of it naturally. Your body responds to the challenge, growing stronger, more resilient. And then there's the shooting. On the rifle range, you discover something about yourself. You're a natural marksman. The M1 Garand feels like an extension of your arm. While other men struggle to hit the target, you're picking off bullseyes with almost casual precision. You're probably the best shot in your entire training group, maybe one of the best shots in the whole camp, which makes what happens next completely baffling. When assignments come down, they don't put you in the infantry. They don't make you a sniper or a scout or a squad leader. They assign you to the medical corps. What are you doing here? People ask you when they see your shooting scores. You have no good answer. Something about IQ tests, they tell you. Something about psychology questionnaires. Whatever bureaucratic calculus determined your fate, you're going to be a medic, running toward the fighting instead of participating in it, carrying bandages instead of bullets. Can you feel the frustration? You've proven you can shoot better than almost anyone, and they're taking away your rifle. But there's nothing to be done. Orders are orders. You're assigned to the 36th Infantry Division, a Texas National Guard unit composed of men from small towns like Paris, Texas, and communities scattered across the Lone Star State. They've been federalized, transformed from weekend warriors into a fighting force preparing for war. You're among the first Northerners to join their ranks. There's friction. The Civil War may have ended 80 years ago, but some old wounds still fester. Yankees and Texans eye each other with suspicion, trade barbs about accents and customs, but over time you fall in with them. The shared hardship of training, the common purpose of preparing for combat, these things bridge the gap. By the time you ship out, the Texas versus North jokes are mostly good-natured ribbing. Your medical training comes in phases, during maneuvers in North Carolina, then more intensively at Camp Edwards in Massachusetts. Doctors lecture you on battlefield medicine, teaching you skills that no civilian ever needs to learn. You practice stopping arterial bleeding, splinting compound fractures, administering morphine for pain. You learn to apply sulfa powder to prevent infection, to use tourniquets without cutting off circulation permanently, to assess casualties and make split-second decisions about who can be saved and who can't. But the most important lesson is simple. Your job is to get the wounded man back to an aid station as safely and as fast as possible, trying to save his life at all times. You're not there to perform surgery. You're there to keep men alive long enough for the surgeons to work on them. At Camp Edwards, you apply for Officer Candidate School, hoping to earn a commission as an infantry lieutenant at Fort Benning, Georgia. You're approved to go before the board, but before your appointment date arrives, all personnel are frozen. The division is preparing to ship out. Your dreams of officers' bars evaporate. Looking back decades later, you'll see this as a blessing in disguise. I probably would have lasted about 3 weeks as a second lieutenant in the infantry, you'll reflect, and probably been killed. Second lieutenants in combat have a life expectancy measured in weeks, sometimes days. The medic's role you resented may have saved your life. From Camp Edwards, the 36th Division moves to Virginia for mountain maneuvers at Camp AP Hill. Preparation, though you don't know it yet, for the rugged terrain of Italy. Then it's back to Fort Dix, where you board a Liberty ship bound for North Africa. The Atlantic crossing takes 2 weeks. Your convoy consists of dozens of ships, troop transports, cargo vessels, destroyer escorts prowling the perimeter. The ships zigzag constantly, changing course every few minutes to throw off German U-boat captains trying to calculate torpedo solutions. There are submarine alerts. There are always submarine alerts. But no torpedoes find your ship. The conditions below decks are miserable. Men are packed into every available space, sleeping in bunks stacked 4 high, breathing air that smells of diesel fuel and sweat and seasickness. 24-hour card games help pass the time. You learn to sleep through anything. In April 1943, you land in Oran, Algeria. The war in North Africa is winding down. Rommel's Africa Corps will surrender in Tunisia within weeks, but you're not here to fight the Germans. Not yet. You're here to train. The sights of North Africa hit you like a physical blow. Everything is different. The architecture, the language, the customs. You see Arab men walking hand in hand, a cultural practice that seems bizarre to American eyes. The Army has supplied literature explaining these customs, urging tolerance and understanding. If you see Arab men walking along holding hands, don't laugh, the pamphlets advise. Good advice for young men who've never been more than a few hundred miles from home. You're eventually bivouacked near Rabat in French Morocco, not far from Casablanca on the Atlantic coast. The summer of 1943 passes in a routine of training exercises and medical instruction. You practice amphibious landings, climbing up and down rope ladders to board landing craft. It seems like crucial preparation, though when the real invasion comes, you'll simply jump aboard at deck level, making all that rope work feel pretty pointless. British veterans visit your unit, men who've been fighting in North Africa for years. They share stories of combat, describe the German tactics you'll face, drill into you the importance of giving only name, rank, and serial number if captured. They're impressive figures, these combat-hardened soldiers, and their lectures leave a mark. One training mishap nearly derails everything. The Army issues you Adabrin tablets, a synthetic substitute for quinine to prevent malaria. That first night, 95% of the troops are violently ill, vomiting uncontrollably, so nauseous they can barely stand. It's a disaster. Combat readiness is completely compromised. They have to start over, giving you quarter tablets, then half tablets, gradually building up tolerance over a month until your system can handle the full dose. It's a stark reminder that in war, Death can come from unexpected directions, even from the pills meant to protect you. Through it all, you interact with French civilians when you can, getting passes to town every week or two. There are cafes to visit, a taste of normal life amid the preparations for something decidedly abnormal. Are you scared of what's coming? Maybe. But there's also anticipation, a desire to get on with it, to see what you're made of, to make out if all this training has prepared you for the real thing. Early September 1943, you're back in Oran, Algeria, loaded onto transport ships along with thousands of other soldiers. The rumors are flying. Everyone knows an invasion is coming, but nobody knows exactly where or when. Before you embark, General Eisenhower himself reviews the troops. You shake his hand, look into the eyes of the Supreme Allied Commander. It's a moment you'll never forget, especially when you shake that same hand again 5 years later at your college graduation. On the night of September 8th, you're aboard ship, steaming through the Mediterranean toward the coast of Italy. The men are tense, quiet, each lost in his own thoughts. And then Eisenhower's voice comes over the ship's radio with stunning news. The Italian government has surrendered unconditionally. The celebration is instantaneous. Men cheer, embrace, pound each other on the back. The enemy has given up before the fight even started. We're going to be in Rome this weekend, somebody shouts. And everyone believes it. You allow yourself to imagine it, walking through the ancient streets of Rome as a liberator, welcomed by grateful Italians. The war essentially won. Can you feel the relief flooding through you? The tension draining from your shoulders. Hold on to that feeling. Remember it. What they didn't tell you, what they couldn't tell you, is that while the Italian government may have surrendered, the German army occupying Italy most certainly has not. A panzer division is dug in around the beaches of Salerno, manned by some of the best troops in the Wehrmacht, with reinforcements already rolling south, and there will be no preliminary bombardment. The generals want surprise, so there's no naval gunfire to soften the beaches, no airstrikes to suppress enemy positions. You're going in cold, expecting to be welcomed, and instead you'll face a prepared enemy determined to throw you back into the sea. September 9th, 1943, D-Day for Operation Avalanche. The beaches near the ancient Greek city of Paestum, south of Salerno. The landing craft approaches the shore in the pre-dawn darkness. You're in the first wave, about to set foot on what the Germans call Festung Europa, Fortress Europe. Your heart pounds against your ribs. Your hands are slick with sweat, despite the cool morning air. Around you, men grip their rifles and pray. Hallowed be thy name. The ramp drops around 3:30 in the morning. Cold Mediterranean water surges in, waist deep, shocking your system. You push forward, each step a struggle against the surf and the weight of your medical supplies. And then the German guns open up. The 88mm shells come in flat and fast, fired from anti-aircraft guns that the Germans have lowered to point directly at the beach. Each explosion sends geysers of sand and water into the air, fills your world with noise and fury. Machine guns add their chattering roar to the chaos. Men are falling all around you, cut down before they've taken 10 steps on European soil. Captain Akins goes down almost immediately. 2 minutes on the beach and a shell takes his leg. Vernon Anderson, the medic you trained with, is killed the moment he leaves the ramp. And then you see your buddy, the one whose head has been torn open. And you make the choice that defines what kind of soldier you are. You run toward him. This is what being a medic means. This is why they trained you. Not to hide, not to seek cover, but to run toward the wounded while everyone else is trying to find shelter. You drop beside your friend, and you work, dumping sulfa powder into a wound that shouldn't be survivable, tying his head together with bandages, doing the impossible because the alternative is watching him die. How do you stay focused with shells exploding around you? How do you keep your hands steady when any second could be your last? There's no answer, really. You just do it. you're a medic. For hours, you're pinned on that beach, not because you're hiding, but because there are so many wounded men who need your help. The 88s keep firing. German planes strafe the beach, diving in low to rake the sand with machine gun fire. Dive bombers scream down from the sky. That night, after you've finally pushed a couple miles inland, the Germans bomb your position. The dive bomber drops its payload just yards from where you've dug in. 3 of your buddies are buried alive. A 4th is killed by the concussion alone, without a mark on his body. 6 days. 6 days of near constant combat, of artillery and mortars and machine guns, of treating wounded men and watching some of them die despite everything you do. 6 days of living on chocolate bars and adrenaline, sleeping in snatches, never knowing if the next shell has your name on it. Finally, relief arrives. Montgomery's 8th Army pushes up from Sicily, taking pressure off your flank. Paratroopers are dropped in to fight as infantry. The German counterattacks slowly lose momentum. When the 36th Division is finally pulled off the line, it's decimated. Replacements pour in from all over the country. California, Michigan, Pennsylvania, New Jersey. Men who haven't seen what you've seen. Men who look at you, a veteran of 6 grueling days of combat, with something like awe in their eyes. You've survived your baptism of fire, but the war in Italy has only just begun. After Salerno, you're pulled off the line to absorb replacements and recover from losses that have gutted the division. Other units move forward, the 3rd Division, the 34th, the 45th, along with British and Commonwealth forces. But soon enough, you're back in the fight. The objective sounds simple. Take Rome, capture the Eternal City, and open up new fronts against the Nazi Empire. The only problem is that between you and Rome lies some of the most challenging terrain in Europe, a landscape of mountains, valleys, and rivers that the Germans have transformed into an almost impenetrable defensive network. Do you understand what you're facing? The German defenses stretch across the Italian peninsula, line after line of fortifications anchored on mountains with names that will become synonymous with suffering. Mount Maggiore, Mount Lungo, Monte Cassino. The Germans hold the high ground everywhere. Their artillery is zeroed in on every approach, every valley, every river crossing. Their machine guns cover every meter of ground you have to cross. The winter of 1943-44 is the worst of your life. It rains constantly, not gentle rain, driving, relentless downpours that turn dirt roads into rivers of mud. When it's not raining, it's snowing, blanketing the mountains in white that looks beautiful from a distance, but means death for men trying to climb those exposed slopes. The mud is knee-deep in places, sucking at your boots, making every step an exhausting effort. You watch men sink to their thighs, struggling to free themselves while enemy shells explode around them. Personal hygiene becomes a distant memory. One stretch, you go 11 days without shaving. There's no clean water, no time, no point. You boil what water you can, trying not to think about what might be in it. You survive on sea rations. Stew one meal, hash the next, baked beans after that, morning, noon, and night. For variety, you get hardtack biscuits and your choice of terrible powdered drinks. Lemonade that tastes like chemicals, cocoa that tastes like mud, coffee so acidic it burns your throat. The grease eventually catches up with your liver. You come down with jaundice, your skin turning yellow, your body finally rebelling against months of abuse. You wake up in a field hospital surrounded by unfamiliar faces, Japanese faces. For a disorienting moment, you think you're in Pearl Harbor. Then you understand. These are Nisei soldiers, Japanese Americans of the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, the most decorated unit in American military history. They've been fighting nearby, taking terrible casualties with unshakable courage. You get to know some of them during your recovery. They speak English as well as you do. They were born in America, raised in California and Hawaii. Their loyalty never in question, despite everything their families have endured. But the worst part of the Italian winter isn't the weather or the food or the sickness. It's the fighting. The Germans hold the high ground. They always hold the high ground. From their positions on the mountain peaks, they can see every move you make. Their observers call in artillery on any unit foolish enough to show itself. Their machine gun positions are expertly sighted, creating interlocking fields of fire that turn open ground into kill zones. You learn what the $1 Million Mountain means. That's what they call Mount Maggiore, after American forces pump $1 million worth of artillery shells into it over 2 days, an astronomical sum in 1944. $1 million of high explosives, and still the Germans hold. Still they fire down at you from their bunkers and foxholes, waiting for the next assault. And then there's the weapon you come to fear the most, the Nebelwerfer, which the GIs call the Screaming Mimi. It's a multiple rocket launcher that fires 6 or 8 rounds at once. But before the explosives arrive, there's a sound, a horrible mechanical screeching that echoes through the mountains, bouncing off rock faces, seeming to come from everywhere at once. The first time you hear it, you think it's some kind of air raid siren. Then the rockets start falling. The Germans first use it against you at Mount Maggiore. You'll never forget that sound. Never stop flinching when you hear anything similar. The one saving grace is that the Screaming Mimi isn't particularly accurate, unusual for German weapons, which tend toward deadly precision, but accuracy almost doesn't matter when 6 or 8 shells are falling in your general vicinity. What scares you most, though, isn't the artillery or the rockets. It's the landmines. Mines are buried everywhere, in roads, in fields, in the rubble of destroyed buildings. They're invisible until you step on one, and then it's too late. Artillery you can hear coming. You can duck, find cover, pray. Small arms fire, you can identify the direction and take shelter. But mines kill without warning, turning a routine patrol into catastrophe in the blink of an eye. As a medic, your job is to retrieve the wounded, and in those mountains, that's a brutal, backbreaking task. There are no roads where you're fighting, no way to bring vehicles forward. You carry litters up and down slopes that would challenge a mountain goat, slipping in the mud, rain streaming down your face, trying desperately not to drop the man whose life depends on you getting him to the aid station. The mules help. Italian civilians hire out their animals for about $1 a day to haul supplies up the mountains and wounded men down. You watch these stubborn, sure-footed beasts pick their way along trails that seem impossible, and you're grateful for every one of them. But even with mules, the work is devastating. Men ruin their backs carrying full-grown soldiers down those slopes, arriving at the aid station barely able to stand themselves. How long can you keep this up? How many friends can you watch die before something inside you breaks? January 1944. You're positioned outside the town of Cassino, facing the Gustav Line, the strongest defensive position the Germans have constructed in Italy. Behind the line looms Monte Cassino, crowned by an ancient Benedictine monastery that the Germans have turned into an observation post. And behind that, the road to Rome. Your commanding general, not the division commander General Fred Walker, but the army commander Mark Clark, has decided on a frontal assault across the Rapido River. The Rapido isn't wide. From bank to bank, it's maybe 25 to 50 feet, but it's deep, 10 feet or more, with a swift, deadly current that can sweep a man off his feet and drag him under. The Germans hold the high ground on the opposite bank, looking down on every possible crossing point. They've fortified every approach, zeroed their artillery on every inch of the riverbank, positioned machine guns that will shred anything moving in the open. General Walker begs Clark not to attempt the crossing. They don't have a chance, he argues. He knows his men, knows this terrain, knows that sending infantry across that river in the face of prepared defenses is suicide. But Clark is one of Eisenhower's boys, part of the West Point inner circle, and his orders stand. The 141st and the 143rd Infantry regiments are sent across. Your regiment, the 142nd, is held in reserve. What follows is a slaughter. The men can't even get across the river. The current sweeps away their rubber boats. Those who make it into the water are dragged under by the weight of their equipment. Those who somehow reach the far bank are cut down by machine gun fire before they can establish a foothold. The Germans, watching from their commanding heights, pick off American soldiers like targets at a shooting gallery. Even the Germans can't believe Clark is actually pressing the attack. They watch the Americans die in waves and wonder what kind of commander would order men into such an obvious kill zone. The casualty figures are catastrophic. Both regiments are practically wiped out. Hundreds of men killed, hundreds more wounded or captured in a matter of hours. An entire division's worth of combat power squandered on an operation that had no chance of success. And then, something extraordinary happens. Something that speaks to the humanity that can persist even in the midst of industrialized slaughter. A temporary truce is negotiated. A soldier in your outfit who speaks German, a Jewish soldier, ironically enough, goes out under a white flag to arrange it. For 2 or 3 hours, the guns fall silent. Americans wade into the river to retrieve their dead, dragging bodies back to the friendly shore. Germans do the same on their side. Medics move through the carnage, treating those who can still be saved. And then the fighting resumes. You're in reserve, so you don't cross the Rapido that night. But you see the aftermath. You treat the survivors. Shell-shocked men who stare through you with hollow eyes, who flinch at every sound, who've watched their friends die in water turned red with blood. Years later, veterans of the 36th Division will demand a congressional investigation into what happened at the Rapido. They'll take their case to the House and Senate, testifying before military affairs committees, demanding accountability. Congress will absolve Clark of wrongdoing. He'll end his career as president of the Citadel in South Carolina, his reputation largely intact. But you'll never forget, never forgive. The disaster at the Rapido doesn't end the fighting around Cassino. The Allies keep trying, keep attacking, keep dying. The mountains don't care. The Germans don't budge. There are moments that surprise you amid the horror. The Italians are supposed to be your allies now. They've switched sides, formed a new army to fight alongside the Allies. 1,600 of them are assigned to take Mount Lungo, a relatively low-lying position on your flank. It's their first real combat since switching sides, and nobody knows what to expect. They go up that mountain on December 8th. The Germans are waiting. The counterattack is brutal. 84 Italians killed, over 100 wounded, nearly 200 missing. They're thrown back, bloodied but not broken. 8 days later, they go up again. This time, they take it. General Clark himself sends a telegram praising their determination. Whatever you thought about Italian soldiers before, these men proved something on that mountain. They fought, they bled, they didn't quit. But there are also men on your side who fight with a ferocity that takes even the Germans by surprise. You hear stories about the Sikh troops from the British Empire, soldiers from India who've been fighting the Germans across North Africa and now Italy. They have their own methods for dealing with the enemy. The stories say that when they find German soldiers sleeping, they cut the ears off the men on either end, kill them, and leave the one in the middle alive and traumatized. Are the stories true? You don't know, but you believe them. And then there's Monte Cassino itself. The monastery crowns the peak of the mountain, its ancient walls overlooking every approach to Rome. The Germans have fortified the heights all around it, using the monastery as an observation post to direct artillery fire. Every assault up those slopes ends in failure and death. Finally, the decision is made. Somewhere far from the mud and the blood, generals decide to destroy a site of immense religious and historical significance. The monastery will be bombed. You watch the bombers come in wave after wave, hundreds of aircraft dropping thousands of pounds of explosives on that mountaintop. The bombing goes on for what feels like hours. When it finally stops, the monastery is rubble. smoke rising from the destruction visible for miles. And it does no good. The Germans are dug in too deep. The bombing just adds more rubble to their defensive positions, more cover for their machine gun nests. When Allied troops, Polish soldiers this time, try to advance up the mountain, they're cut down just like everyone before them. Monte Cassino won't fall until May, when you're practically in Rome anyway. When the German position becomes unsound and they finally withdraw. Months of fighting, thousands of casualties, for a mountain that had to be ground down before it could finally be taken. Does the futility of it all weigh on you? Does it make you question the decisions being made by the men in charge? You don't have time for these thoughts. There's always another wounded man to treat, another patrol to prepare for, another shell to dodge. Philosophy is a luxury for men who aren't fighting to survive. In late January 1944, the Allies try something different. Instead of battering against the Gustav Line, they'll go around it. A massive amphibious assault at Anzio, south of Rome, designed to outflank the German defenses and force a retreat. The landing itself is almost unopposed. Allied troops pour ashore against minimal resistance. The road to Rome lies practically undefended. All they have to do is push inland, cut the main highway, and the German position at Cassino becomes untenable. But they stop. They dig in. The commanders decide to consolidate rather than push forward. By the time they finally attack, it's too late. Why? Indecision, fear of overextending, a failure of nerve at the critical moment. Whatever the reason, the pause is fatal. The Germans react with characteristic speed and brutality. Reinforcements pour in from all over Europe, France, Yugoslavia, northern Italy. Within days, the Anzio beachhead is trapped, surrounded, under constant artillery fire from the hills that should have been captured in the first hours. The troops at Anzio are stuck. They spend months dug into a flat, sandy plain with almost no natural cover. German artillery, including a massive railway gun the soldiers call Anzio Annie, pounds them day and night. Every few hours, shells come screaming in from miles away, and there's nowhere to hide. Your division eventually goes in, but only briefly, arriving just before the breakout. You dig into the sandy soil, keep your head down, and pray that the next shell doesn't find your foxhole. And then comes the moment everything changes. Your regiment, the 142nd Infantry, executes what you'll later describe as a classic move. Under cover of darkness, starting as soon as the sun sets, the entire regiment, maybe 3,500 men, moves silently over a series of mountains. 4 or 5 miles through enemy territory without detection, without firing a shot, without alerting the Germans to what's happening. Can you imagine the tension of that march? Thousands of men moving in silence, every footstep carefully placed, every piece of equipment secured to prevent rattling. If the Germans discover you, the whole operation is finished. If one man makes too much noise, trips over a rock, kicks a loose stone, you could all die. But the march succeeds. When dawn breaks, you're behind enemy lines, overlooking the German positions from the hills they thought were secure. Where the hell did they come from? The Germans must be asking themselves that question as American artillery opens up, as shells rain down on positions that were supposed to be protected. A firefight erupts, fierce, chaotic, the most intense combat you've experienced since Salerno. Mortars fall around you. German infantry counterattacks, trying to drive you off the heights. You've never been busier as a medic. Wounded men are everywhere, calling for help, dragging themselves toward cover. You work through the night, through the next day, barely stopping to eat or rest. And then, breakthrough. Within 24 hours of that night march, you're on trucks, rolling toward your objective. The prize that eluded you for 9 months, that cost so many lives at Cassino, and the Rapido, and Anzio, is finally within reach. June 4th, 1944. You ride into Rome. Italians line the streets, cheering, weeping, throwing flowers at the liberating army. Women blow kisses, old men salute, children run alongside the trucks, shouting and laughing. After everything you've been through, the blood, the muck, the freezing mountains, the friends buried in military cemeteries across Italy, this is your reward. This is victory. You get a pass for the afternoon, walk through ancient streets, and somehow find yourself at the Vatican. You're not Catholic, but that doesn't matter. You have an audience with Pope Pius XII. You buy rosaries, have them blessed, tuck them away to give to Catholic friends back home. You're part of the first Allied army in modern history to capture Rome from the south, and the first to liberate an Axis capital. The ancient generals who tried and failed are long forgotten, but you'll carry this moment forever. 2 days later, the Allies land at Normandy. The massive invasion in France dominates every headline, every newsreel, every conversation back home. Your victory in Rome is forgotten almost overnight, overshadowed by the drama unfolding on the beaches of Normandy. But you were there. You remember. After Rome, you push north, chasing the retreating Germans. Near a town called Civitavecchia, northwest of Rome, your own Air Force accidentally bombs your position. Hundreds of American bombs falling on American troops. By some miracle, nobody in your immediate unit is killed. But it's a stark reminder that death isn't always dealt by the enemy. You advance until you can almost see the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and then you're pulled off the line. More training, another invasion. August 15th, 1944, Operation Dragoon, the invasion of southern France. You're aboard a ship, heading for a beach on the French Riviera, near San Rafael, southwest of Nice. When you look at the map showing your assigned landing zone, your stomach drops. It's a death trap, a narrow cove with high ground on both sides, perfect for German defenders to pour fire down on the beach. Another Salerno waiting to happen. But something inside you has changed since that first invasion 11 months ago. At Salerno, you were terrified, uncertain, hoping for the best while fearing the worst. Now you're a veteran of nearly a year of continuous combat. You've seen so much death that the prospect of your own has lost some of its power to frighten you. On the boat ride in, you read a novel, King's Row, which will later be made into a movie starring Ronald Reagan. You read as if you have all the time in the world, as if you're not heading toward what might be your last day on Earth. You finish the book before you reach the beach. For the first time in my life, I expected to die, you'll recall later, and I was so unconcerned about it. What does that kind of acceptance feel like? Is it courage? Resignation? A strange peace that comes from surrendering control? You don't analyze it. You just read and wait. But the death you've accepted doesn't come. At the last moment, Rear Admiral Spencer Lewis, commanding the naval forces, overrules the landing plan. He looks at that cove, calculates the casualties, and says, "No, you're not going in there. They'll rip you to pieces. We're putting you somewhere else. The new landing zone is easier to approach, with less commanding terrain for the Germans to occupy. You follow another regiment ashore and land without a single casualty. Your feet are dry when you step onto French soil. No one's shooting at you. Within 2 hours, you're 5 miles inland." The contrast with Salerno couldn't be more stark, all because one admiral had the wisdom to override a bad plan and the courage to make the call. The race across France begins. It's nothing like Italy. No grinding mountain warfare, no mud-filled valleys, no endless stalemate. Here you move miles every day, sometimes tens of miles, chasing a German army in retreat. At Montélimar, you help trap the German 19th Army, tens of thousands of enemy soldiers caught in a pocket, desperate to escape. It's not a total victory. Many Germans slip through, but the damage is devastating. Elsewhere in Provence, near Draguignan, a German 3-star general surrenders to an American second lieutenant. The mighty Wehrmacht, brought low by a kid who probably isn't old enough to buy a drink back home. It's the kind of moment that makes suffering seem worthwhile. And your job as a medic? It's dramatically easier. In Italy, you had to carry wounded men down mountainsides for miles, slipping in the mud, your back screaming in protest. Here you can bring jeeps almost right up to the front lines. The wounded can be evacuated in minutes instead of hours. Through it all, the French civilians cheer you on. They line the roads as you pass, offering wine, bread, kisses. Women want to shake every American hand. Old men weep at the sight of Allied soldiers driving the Germans out of their country. But the easy days don't last forever. As you push through Provence and into the Vosges Mountains of eastern France, the terrain turns hostile again. The forests close in. The valleys narrow. The combat intensifies. Mid-December 1944. You're on the side of a hill overlooking Alsace-Lorraine, the region that Germany and France have fought over for centuries. You've been wounded, not badly, but enough to add another Purple Heart to your collection. In front of you, the war goes on. Behind you, somewhere across the Atlantic, Joyce is waiting. A fellow from the 36th approaches. The captain wants to see you. You walk back to the command post, wondering what's wrong. What new disaster is about to unfold? The captain looks at you with an expression you can't quite read. I've got news for you. You're going home. Going home. After 18 months of combat, after Salerno and the mountains and Rome and southern France and the Vosges, after everything. They take your medical supplies, all of your equipment. They don't want you sneaking back to the front for one more patrol, one more chance to get yourself killed. You're too valuable to lose now. A heavily decorated combat veteran, being sent back to show the folks at home that their boys are winning the war. You join a group of other veterans from across the European theater, men with a chest full of medals and distant eyes, men from the 82nd Airborne and other legendary units. You sail home on the Queen Mary, crossing in just 4 days. No zigzagging, no convoys, just a straight shot across the Atlantic. You get 30 days leave, extended to 40 when new orders come through. And during that leave, you do something you've been dreaming about for nearly 2 years. You marry Joyce. She waited for you. 20 months after you fought across Italy and France. 20 months of letters, some of them arriving with words blacked out by censors. 20 months of not knowing if the next telegram would bring the worst news imaginable. And through it all, she waited. Now you're husband and wife. But the war isn't over. Europe is still in flames, and your orders say you have to go back. Can you imagine what that's like? You've survived when so many others died. You've married the woman you love. You have every reason to stay, every justification to find some medical excuse, some bureaucratic loophole. But that's not who you are. The night you ship out again, Red Cross girls at the port are making small talk with the soldiers, handing out supplies, trying to boost morale. One of them asks if this is your first time overseas. No, you tell her. We're going back for a second time. We're all here because we're well decorated. Now we're going back to finish it off. The Red Cross girl stares at you for a moment. Then she starts to cry. And then you're on the ship, heading back to war. How many men would have found a way to stay home? How many would have milked an injury, claimed combat fatigue, done whatever it took to avoid returning to that hell? You'll never know. What you know is this: not one man in your group deserts. Not one man misses the boat. You all go back, together, to finish what you started. The war you return to is different from the one you left. On the voyage back across the Atlantic, you come down with European malaria, a souvenir from Italy that'll flare up once more years later during your college final exams. By the time you recover and rejoin the 36th Division, it's late April 1945. The Third Reich is crumbling. You cross the Rhine River, the last great natural barrier protecting Germany, and push deep into the enemy homeland. But this isn't the desperate combat you experienced in Italy or the Vosges. The German army is collapsing, disintegrating. Everywhere you look, there are prisoners, not dozens or hundreds, but thousands upon thousands, endless columns of Wehrmacht, soldiers streaming westward, desperate to surrender to Americans rather than fall into Russian hands. You move through southern Germany, Ulm, Nuremberg, Mainz, names that once represented the heart of Hitler's empire, now just signposts on your march to victory. The resistance is sporadic, half-hearted. The German soldiers you encounter have no fight left in them. The captures mount. Your division takes Hermann Göring, Hitler's second-in-command, the head of the Luftwaffe, one of the most powerful men in Nazi Germany. You see him from just a few yards away. "Who's the fat guy?" someone asks. "Looks like Göring, doesn't it?" you reply. You both laugh and walk away, but it is Göring, captured by the 36th Division, his glory days behind him, facing justice for his crimes. The list of prisoners grows longer. Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt, one of the German army's most respected commanders. French prisoners liberated from Castle Itter, including former Prime Minister Paul Reynaud. In one of the war's strangest battles, where American tankers and Wehrmacht defectors fought side by side against the SS, your division's 142nd Infantry arrives as the relief force, ending the siege. Miklos Horthy, the regent of Hungary, freed from German custody, and Leni Riefenstahl, Hitler's favorite filmmaker, the woman who created the Nazi propaganda masterpiece Triumph of the Will. One general in your division invites Göring to lunch at a hotel. When word gets out, there's hell to pay. You don't break bread with war criminals, no matter what their rank. But not everything you encounter in those final days is cause for celebration. In late April 1945, your division liberates Landsberg, a network of camps in the Dachau system, near the very prison where Hitler wrote Mein Kampf decades earlier during his brief imprisonment in the 1920s. What you find there defies comprehension. Emaciated prisoners, barely alive, their bodies reduced to skin stretched over bone. The evidence of systematic cruelty, of a regime that viewed millions of human beings as subhuman, fit only for slavery and death. This camp may not be as infamous as Auschwitz or Dachau, but the evil is the same. You'd heard rumors about places like this, whispers about camps where Jews and political prisoners were worked to death, starved, murdered by the thousands. You couldn't really visualize it. The human mind isn't built to comprehend such deliberate, industrialized horror. Now you see it with your own eyes. Now you understand, in a way you never did before, exactly what you've been fighting against. In early May, you push into Austria. You're in the resort town of Kitzbühel in the Austrian Alps. They call it Austria's Hollywood, a playground for the rich and famous when the news comes. May 8th, 1945, Victory in Europe Day. Germany has surrendered unconditionally. The war is over. The guns fall silent, but you can't go home yet. There's occupation duty to perform. The task of bringing order to a shattered Germany, of ensuring that the nation that plunged the world into war can never do so again. At first, fraternization with German civilians is forbidden. You can't talk to them, can't socialize with them, can't treat them as anything other than a conquered enemy. But General Eisenhower, practical as always, soon realizes his policy is unenforceable. Young American soldiers are not going to ignore German children begging for chocolate, German girls catching their eye. Within weeks, the rules start to loosen. By summer's end, the ban is mostly memory. You're surprised by what you find. German civilians aren't monsters. They're people. Tired, hungry, defeated people who are mostly relieved that the war is over. They cooperate with occupation authorities. They follow American orders. They seem almost grateful to be governed by rules again. Any rules, after the chaos of the Reich's collapse. You also encounter refugees from all over Europe, survivors of labor camps and death camps, and bombed-out cities, wandering the roads looking for food, for shelter, for any trace of their families torn apart by the war. You help where you can, but the scale of human displacement is overwhelming. The Russian displaced persons are different. They don't want American help, don't respond to American friendliness. They keep to themselves, suspicious and hostile, watching you with eyes that give nothing away. It's a preview of the Cold War already brewing beneath the surface of the Allied victory. You stay in Germany until mid-September, living in requisitioned German houses, sleeping in real beds, enjoying luxuries you'd almost forgotten existed. And then, finally, it's time to go home for good. You sail from Le Havre, France, on a Navy destroyer. The official accommodations are supposed to be on deck, no room for Army personnel in the ship's compartments. But some sailors take pity on you and give you a spare bunk in their cabin. The Atlantic crossing is calm, a far cry from the U-boat-haunted convoy that brought you over 2 years ago. You land in Boston Harbor. You're processed through Fort Dix, the same base where your Army journey began more than 2 years earlier. You receive your honorable discharge papers. You've earned the Purple Heart twice, the Bronze Star twice, one of which started as a Distinguished Service Cross nomination before being downgraded. You've earned the Combat Infantryman's Badge, later converted to the Combat Medic's Badge, 2 Invasion Arrowheads, 5 Campaign Stars, and a stack of other decorations that testify to what you've done and what you've survived. You're 24 years old. The war has consumed your early 20s, taken years you'll never get back. But it's also given you something, a sense of purpose, a knowledge of what you're capable of, a set of experiences that will shape everything that comes after. For the first time since you were 20, your life is your own again. What happens after the war? You enroll at Rutgers University in New Brunswick, New Jersey, using the GI Bill that's transforming American higher education. The campus is flooded with veterans, older, harder, more serious than the teenagers who filled the classrooms before the war. 90% of your graduating class is served. The veterans don't take any nonsense from professors. You challenge lecturers, demand evidence for their claims, refuse to be talked down to by men who spent the war in classrooms while you spent it in foxholes. You study business administration, cramming 4 years into 2.5 by attending classes year-round. You work part-time, first at a pharmacy, then selling memorials for your uncle, discovering a talent for sales that'll define your career. You juggle marriage, fatherhood, studies, and work. You graduate in June 1948, shaking hands with Dwight Eisenhower for the second time. He's the graduation speaker, now president of Columbia University, still wearing civilian clothes but already being talked about as a future president of the country he helped save. You build a career with Esso, Standard Oil of New Jersey, later Exxon, the company you'd always dreamed of working for. 34 years in sales and training, including a stint in Vietnam during the early 1960s, when the war there was still small enough that most Americans didn't even know it was happening. You carry an M1 rifle again, visiting company facilities along the Mekong River, aware that the Viet Cong consider the oil depot a target worth shelling. You raise 2 sons with choice. You watch them grow up in a country that remains at peace, mostly, that never again faces the existential threat of your generation. You give them the childhood you might have had if history had been different. And through it all, you carry the memories. If you can save one mother's son, you've done your job, you tell people who ask about being a combat medic. We saved many. You remember the frustration of being unable to fight back, of watching Germans shoot at you, while all you could do was run toward the wounded, not away from the danger. You remember the terror of landmines, invisible and lethal, waiting for one careless footstep. You remember carrying men down mountainsides in the rain, your back screaming, your arms burning, knowing that if you dropped your burden, he might not survive the fall. You remember the buddy at Salerno, the one whose head you tied back together with bandages in desperate hope. He died 3 days later. His son was born the same day. These memories don't fade with time. They stay with you, sharp and vivid, for the rest of your life. They visit you in quiet moments, in dreams, in the face of a stranger who reminds you of someone long dead. But they don't define you. You're more than what the war made you, more than a medic, more than a veteran, more than the sum of your Purple Hearts and Bronze Stars. You're a husband, a father, a businessman, a citizen of a country you helped save. You are a man who faced the worst humanity could offer and refused to let it break him. Arthur Wenzel never chose to be a medic. He was the best rifle shot in his training class, a natural infantryman who ended up healing instead of harming. Maybe that was fate's plan all along, putting the right man in the right place, where his courage and determination could save lives instead of taking them. From the blood-soaked beaches of Salerno to the killing fields of Monte Cassino, from the triumphant entry into Rome to the second D-Day on the French Riviera, from the Vosges forests to the heart of Nazi Germany, Arthur Wenzel served. He ran toward the guns when every instinct screamed to run away. He treated wounds that seemed beyond treatment, saved men who should have died, held the hands of those who couldn't be saved. He went back when he could have stayed home. He finished what he started. He did his duty. And then he built a life, a good life, a full life, the kind of life that honors the sacrifice of those who didn't make it home. If you can save one mother's son, you've done your job. Arthur Wenzel saved many. May we never forget. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a positive review or rating. It actually makes a huge difference in helping people find these stories and only takes a few seconds. This story can be shared thanks to a partnership with the Rutgers University Oral History Archives. If you've got a story you'd like their help in sharing, visit oralhistory.rutgers.edu. That's oralhistory.rutgers.edu. Visit povworldwar2.com for podcast updates and more. That's povww2.com. I'm Fernando Prieto. Thanks again for listening.